So, this is our first Edmodo video. I'm very excited. We are going to start today by talking about something completely new, and they are functions. But before we can talk about the definition of a function, we just have to talk about relationships within ordered pairs in general. So, those are just going to be some common sense things that we're just going to attach names to and talk about them. So relationships represented by ordered pairs. First things first, do we remember what an ordered pair is? So an ordered pair, remember, is just an x, comma, y value that you use to graph something or you use within a table to determine an equation. So relationships represented by ordered pairs are just called the relations. Pretty simple. We have different ways that we can represent relations in algebra. And so we have this list of ordered pairs here. There's 3. You have 2, 3, 4, 7, and 6, 8. And we want to represent it 3 different ways. The first way is going to be through the use of a table. The second way is by a mapping diagram. This is the only one that's really not something that we've been doing all along. And the third way is a graph. So, to start with, I want you to go ahead and list all of your x, y values in the table. Pause the video now, list them, and then unpause it to check your work. Okay, so, this is just a normal table. Nothing special. It lists which x value matches with which y value. The next one is the only one that's a little different. It's a mapping diagram. So a mapping diagram just matches all of the x's in one column with all the y's in the other, and they match them through showing arrows. So these are going to list all our x's and list all our y's and then map them that match. So list all your x's here, all your y's here, and draw an arrow in between the ones that match. Let's go ahead and pause the video and do that now. Okay, so as you see, I have 2, 4, and 6 listed in my x values, and then they have an arrow drawn to the y value that corresponds. Now this seems pointless for this relation because of the type of relation it is, but it will prove important in the future. So make sure you know how to do it. So for example, if 2 had multiple y values, there would have to be arrows going to all of the y values. And then finally, we just graph it. So this is the same way we've been graphing all along. So go ahead and list your x values and your y values and graph the ordered pairs. Remember to jump by the same number. Your intervals must be equal. So go ahead and pick your intervals and graph those points. So pause the video and do that now. So as you look here, you may have picked different numbers along the bottom, but as long as your intervals were equal, so my interval was jumping by 2, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 on both of them. As long as your intervals were equal, it doesn't matter which intervals you used. And I have 2 with my x matching with 3, 4 with 7, and 6 with 8. So again, something you've been doing for a long time. So now comes in some new stuff. We have to talk about some vocabulary words. The first vocabulary word is domain. So if you look on your notes, it says that the domain represents the x coordinates and the range represents the y coordinates. So domain is for the x, range is for the y. So we are going to, and on the next page, go ahead and list some domains and some ranges. I'm not going to do it here because as part of your check for understanding later, you're going to come back and list your domain and range here. Your domain, though, remember, is your x values. Your range is your y values. So for this one, we're going to leave it. I do want to bring up a couple of other vocabulary words right now that we're going to talk a lot about on Friday, but I want you to kind of start to think about them already. So I'm going to change my font color. This graph that we just graphed is called discrete. The graph underneath it down here is called continuous. Oops, continuous. So if you think about why that is, this graph, notice, is a line. It's continuous in between there. There's no individual points. This graph is called discrete because there are particular points, but there's no line in between them. It doesn't continue in between those. It's just those particular points. So go ahead and flip your page over, and we are going to continue on the next video talking about functions. And functions are a relation that pairs each x with a different, exactly one range value. So each domain has exactly one range.